Jack, China and their export bans, what should we anticipate in 2026?
More of the same. The Chinese are basically just playing us, and the real market isn't buying it, but the so-called experts and analysts in Washington and on the major media, they think this is real. The Chinese do not want us to compete with them. This is not a kindergarten game where everybody goes home with a trophy. I forget what they call it now. Participation. Okay, this is economic competition, and so China is playing back and forth. Yes, they will allow these exports. No, they won't. What do you think that does to production planning in North America? It's chaos.
Next question, Jack. Canada and the United States and rare earths, what's going to happen?
Beats me, because Canada, as I have been preaching for the last 15 years, has quite frankly the largest number of discoveries of rare earth deposits of any country in the world, and many of them are really excellent. And what do they need? They need capital to be developed, and they would be much more efficiently mined and economically processed than almost anything in the United States. Why Washington doesn't recognize this, I don't know. I've only been in this country for 85 years. I haven't figured out how Washington looks yet.
Speaking of Washington, government investments in rare earths. Thoughts on that, please?
Total waste. I think the government doesn't have any idea what the details of the rare earth supply chains are. And I think they're just throwing money against the wall, predominantly at mining. And this is a mistake, because mining is not the choke point in rare earths. It's downstream processing. And even though you can see a mine, you can see a hole in the ground and a bunch of machines, but the people in Washington are not sufficiently educated specifically to understand what the problems are with separation of the rare earths, the manufacturing of metals and alloys, and the manufacturing of magnets. They are literally just throwing money at anybody who says, yes, I can do it.
Rare earth recycling, a good idea or not?
Recycling is only a good idea when the recycled product costs less than the new product. My opinion of all of the recycling ventures I have so far examined the paperwork on is that none of them meet that criterion. Why on earth would you want to pay more for something when there's a recycling company that says, we will supply recycled critical materials at less cost than they would be when you purchase them new from the mine or the refiner? I will say this is the recycling company to support.
The United States and Australia and their rare earth collaborations. Comments?
Yeah, what people don't seem to have noticed is that the Australians are very open. They've said, if the United States will invest in, for example, a project in Australia, we will match that investment. But we are not going, the Australian government has told us, they're not simply going to throw money at a project that the United States likes unless the United States steps up and supports that same project. That's the difference. There are projects in Australia supported by the Australian government with very large support, like Iluka, the Australian heavy mineral sands mining company, has gotten over $1 billion to build out a total rare earth permanent magnet supply chain. But the U.S. has not invested a penny in that. That's strictly Australian. You take Arafura is being supported not only by the Australian government, but by the Japanese company Mitsubishi. We've heard of them, remember the Zero. And no American participation. And I know of one company, which I can't disclose at this point, which has an excellent project in Australia and cannot get American participation until the Australians put their money in. And the Australians are telling this company, we won't do it until the Americans do it. No disrespect. We call this a Mexican standoff when I was a boy.
The Americans in the Congo and in Africa.
I wouldn't even fly over the Congo personally. It's too dangerous. The Congo and the countries in that part of Africa are super rich in critical minerals. I mean, there's so much lithium, rare earth, cobalt, copper in those areas. They could supply the world. The problem is, first they have to stop fighting each other because bullets don't discriminate among non-participants and non-combatants and combatants. And I wouldn't go there. I know the Chinese are very big in that part of Africa, but the American psyche is not prepared for that kind of war, so to speak.
How does the Middle East play in the rare earth supply chain?
The Middle East has more money than brains. Okay, so what they have lucked out in the last century and made huge amounts of money in oil and gas. Okay, they now, but they didn't develop the internal infrastructure in their countries to support a detailed critical minerals industry. So they're saying, well, we'll go out and buy that. The problem is they don't know how to discriminate among the various companies, and the various outside companies, other than oil and gas, really don't know how to build infrastructure in those countries. So this is going to come to nothing.
What about Brazil?
Brazil is very rich in rare earths, in manganese, obviously in iron is one of the leading sources of iron ore in the world. Okay, but these, other than iron ore, Brazil is an undeveloped mining resource. It is now under development, and of course they understand mining quite well, and they understand that they're specialized processing for each type of mineral. But this is new. Even Brazilians that I know tell me we're looking at a 5 to 10 year window before they produce anything. So will Brazil become a producer of critical minerals? Absolutely. Will it happen anytime soon? No.
The Greenland frenzy that kicked off 2025. What's happening with rare earths in Greenland?
Greenland is a rare earth joke. Okay. The principal mineral in Greenland for rare earths is called eudialyte, a silicate mineral. In the last 50 years, because eudialyte is the most common rare earth mineral on the earth, everyone in the rare earth business has been trying to use it as a source because there's lots of deposits. So far, no one in the West, no one in China, no one in Japan has been able to economically or efficiently produce rare earths from eudialyte. Greenland will follow that path. It will not produce anything of value.
So deep sea mining, Jack.
Tracy, I've been involved in deep sea mining for rare earths and manganese nodules for about 12 years now. I can tell you this is a very exciting area to look at for 2026. The Japanese government has gotten involved, and Japanese industry has gotten involved in their territorial waters, the deep sea sediments they have, and these are typically 11,000 feet down, 2 miles down, right? The mud, the sediment at those levels, in particular, one particular area of islands that are Japanese, has between 2,000 and 5,000 parts per million rare earths. There are almost no radioactive species, and the amount of the higher atomic number of heavy rare earths is very dramatically higher than any other place I've ever seen. Japan is investing hundreds of millions in this project. They are bound and determined to bring these sediments up to the surface and extract the rare earths from them. Now, will it be economical? I can't tell you yet. They haven't done it. Will it be efficient? Well, this is, as they say, above my pay grade because it involves deep sea engineering. But it's the engineering that the oil and gas industry has monumentally, been successful with in the Gulf of Mexico and the North Sea. This kind of deep sea operation is not science fiction today. It is routine. Okay. Now, have they ever purposely pumped up the sediment from the bottom? No. But I can tell you, I personally know the Japanese are doing it as we speak. And they are getting ready to develop this kind of industry. Watch for this development in 2026. It's going to be dramatic.
Where do the Russians fall on this supply chain grid?
Well, the Russians have been mining rare earths in Siberia for quite a long time, probably decades. Okay, and in the far northeast of Siberia, they have very large deposits, but the typical temperature on a sunny winter day is 50 below zero, so it's not exactly a convivial climate. Now, the Russians know all about rare earth physics and chemistry. They're very, very good at paperwork. They're very, very good at science. They're not so good at engineering. Now, they have announced that they're going to build a rare earth permanent magnet industry in their country. Okay, I don't see the point of it, and I doubt that they're really going to do it because they don't really have a free market in Russia. It's whatever the central government decrees. And I think as the rare earth mania recedes and as equilibrium is restored in the rare earth market over the next 2 years, the Russians will simply drop out and continue to drink vodka and eat caviar.
Can you give us an update on the magnet market in the United States?
The magnet market in the United States is a legacy market. We use between 10 and 20,000 tons of let's call simple rare earth permanent magnets a year to manufacture these small electric motors used in automobiles, like for accessories, and for the speaker and vibrator in a cell phone, those cell phones we make here, and decreasingly in the memory of personal computers as solid state devices that don't use rare earths replace the small motor driven memory units. The large servers that are used by like the big corporations and the future servers that will be used for AI, they will require significant tonnage of rare earth permanent magnets. But again, these will be the basic rare earth permanent magnets, not the ones that require the heavy rare earths. That market is declining in the United States because the EV market did not take off here and is rapidly declining as our domestic automobile companies are abandoning their plans to go all electric. So, in my opinion, the rare earth permanent magnet market will be for the basic type of rare earth permanent magnets and will not grow very much in the next few years because I think these domestic markets are mature.
What is the Department of War focused on right now?
The Department of War needs the specialized high temperature resistant magnets for its warfighting machines. But the amount they need is not particularly a large part of the North American demand. It's estimated to be 3 to 5% of the total demand for magnets. So of course the amount they need is classified, but the plant they have financed in Carolina, Bacchus has a capacity of between 1,500 and 2,000 tons a year of rare earth permanent magnets. So we can guess that that's probably the military demand, which is between 5 and 10% of the North American demand. Those magnets will, in fact, require dysprosium and terbium, the heavy rare earths, but not so much. If it's, let's say, for 2,000 tons of rare earth permanent magnets of the type that can resist temperature variation and continue to be magnets, that plant would need 20 to 40 tons a year of dysprosium and terbium total, and maybe 600 tons of neodymium praseodymium. That number, for your information, is just 1/10 the number of neodymium praseodymium, 1/10 of what's planned to be produced in California by one of our rare earth companies today. And we don't have any sources of dysprosium and terbium in the United States. So many companies in Brazil, in Malaysia, and places like that do produce or can produce dysprosium and terbium, but they can't make any money producing just 20 to 40 tons a year. This is the real problem. Can anyone produce the suite of rare earth magnet materials you need and make money? If there were such deposits in the United States, the military would subsidize them for its own use. But there aren't any deposits like that in the United States. So we have to depend on the kindness of strangers. And they have to be strangers that our government, US government, tells us are non-hostile. Well, that reduces us to Malaysia and Brazil, and maybe Africa, okay? But the problem is, it's not enough production to make a viable company. And unless you're in a market that will subsidize, you're SOL, out of luck.
Should we be stockpiling rare earths at this time?
No. Rare earth metals, you can stockpile rare earth oxides. They're stable, okay? But rare earth metals and alloys are not. They tend to degrade in atmosphere. So they would have to be stored in ultra dry, oxygen-free situations. That's very expensive. And the history of ultra pure materials, and I have a long history of this, 60 years of this. No matter what you do to safeguard the stability of your ultra high purity material, it doesn't work. They degrade over time. So the way to stockpile rare earths is to keep them as oxides in dry atmosphere. And then when you need, let's say, metals and alloys to make magnets, you withdraw from the stockpile and send it to somebody who can transform it. So in other words, you operate on a just-in-time basis.
If you were able to give President Trump some advice on how to proceed, what would that be?
Very simply, I would tell him to pay more attention to the market and stop simply decreeing that this will be produced or that will be produced. I think that what Washington has not done is taken a hard look at the market.
Jack, thank you so much for your Q&A with me today and for giving us some feedback on where the rare earth markets have been in 2025 and where they may be headed in 2026. Thank you.